we as sales leaders really need to think through how can we best provide our colleagues support to help them be the best they can be in the current situation.
Welcome to the Modern Selling Podcast, where we help the entire sales community to create more sales conversations with today's modern buyer. This includes anyone from entrepreneurs and business owners to sales reps and sales leaders. Each episode, you will hear from sales leaders, practitioners, and influencers to help you find, engage, connect, and nurture your relationships with your buyers. I'm Mario Martinez Jr., your host, and you're now listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Modern Selling Podcast. I've got with me someone who I've been trying to get on my podcast for a very long time, actually about 2 years. And it finally, I had to pull a few strings. I had to ask somebody else to be able to get me introduced, and then I had to work through all the back end. But you're going to be excited with this particular guest. It is actually Wendy Mitchell-Covington. She's the National Vice President of Sales Success at TriNet, who also happens to be a former customer of Ingresso as well. So, Wendy, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, Mario, I am so excited to be here. You have no idea. So thank you for having me.
Well, I'm just glad that we got the legal and HR and PR and everybody else, to bless your appearance here. And I'm like, gosh, you're one of the hardest gals to get on my show to get through all the process. But I'm glad that we got it all cleared out. And I'm thankful that I knew Fatima who could help us get through it.
Yeah, we'll have fun today.
We will. So do me a favor. And Wendy, talk a little bit about your background. Now, of course, you've been in sales. You've been also in sales success and, in multiple roles. But just give everybody a little bit of background of who you are. We've got sales leaders, sales reps. We've got sales enablement professionals that are listening in, and of course, marketing and some business owners as well. So a little background about yourself. And then I've got a very special question that I want to ask you.
Well, I started my career carrying a bag like so many other sales leaders, but really, I decided sales was the thing for me when I really got into HR outsourcing. And what was so fascinating to me is sitting down with business owners similar to yourself and hearing their stories and their journeys and what they want out of their businesses, and then having a solution for those business owners. And then I really got hooked. So that's really how I got into sales. Through my career, I've done everything from lead thousands of individual contributors through helping other sales VPs with their career, and then have also had the gift, because of what I believe about development of people, to be engaged in sales enablement as well as sales strategy roles.
Gotcha. And now at TriNet, you handle sales process, training, development of all sales personnel. Is that correct?
Yeah, my hands are in a lot of different things, and I've been at TriNet almost 3 years. So I've had my hands doing different things, from leading sales contributors to leading sales leaders to having my hands in many of the processes for improvement as well as enablement. So quite a few different things over the last 2.5, 3 years.
Good to know. So you've carried both the sales process development hat and sales leadership hat throughout your career, as well as at TriNet as well. So that's why I'm excited, because getting a chance to be able to speak to sales leaders in the trenches, right? Yeah. As you know, I think you listen to my podcast as well. Everybody who's listening in, I've got thought leaders. People talk about theory, but what I really care a lot about is practitioner. And a post just went out this morning on LinkedIn. It was Kurt Shaver, who you know, and someone was writing a post about they were surprised to see that a CEO was engaged in a sales process. And Kurt actually commented and said, "Hey, my CEO, every week I see him engaged in the sales process, because I can't get away from selling. Get me in the field. I want to know what's up with everyone." So it's good to talk to those that are in the trenches and understanding what's happening on a day in over day out basis.
And my CEO does the same.
There we go. So, and I think especially now in this time, it's all hands on deck, right? I mean, post-COVID, during COVID, during shelter in place, whatever period you're in right now, whatever country you're listening to us, it is all hands on deck, and there isn't any one person that's responsible. It's like all of us are responsible for making sure that we carry the company through. That's kind of my perspective. What do you think?
Completely agree. Couldn't agree even more.
Fantastic. So before I get into some very specific questions that we have to talk about, I do want to ask, as I customarily ask all of my guests, tell us something that nobody would know about you, even if they were to look at your social profiles. And I'm looking for something juicy, girl. I want something juicy. You know, I've had Chad on the show, and he gave me that he ran the illegal poker ring and paid his way through college, right? I had someone said they had an extra appendage, and we're not going to talk about that one. But give me something good. What do you got for me?
Well, I don't know if it's juicy. I'm boring sometimes, but something about me is my first love. So my first love was actually dance. So growing up, I was going to be a professional dancer. And then unfortunately, but fortunately for today, during college, I really destroyed my knees. And a pivotal time in my life, I had to give my first love away and did not get to go down the track of being a professional dancer and fell into sales.
From dance to sales. That's an interesting transition. But let me ask you, what type of dance?
What type of dance? It was more Broadway type of stuff.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I wonder if there's any old recordings that we could find on YouTube of something like that. Is there anything there?
Well, won't tell you how old I am, but I'll age myself by saying probably unable to find it these days.
Okay. Well, the research team at Ingressa will look to see if we find something on YouTube, and we're going to get that old, like 3-year-old video that's posted from your parents on YouTube.
There you go. There you go.
I love it. Well, that's good to know. All right. So we got an ex-dancer on there. Now, I don't know if I ever told you this, but my wife always tells me every time I pass by the Broadway place where they do all the Broadway shows, I'm always singing. And she says, one day you're going to go apply for that. One day you're going to go apply and try to sing on Broadway. And I'm like, no, not good enough. But that's always been my dream, to do something like that.
There you go.
Broadway.
You have a voice.
So let's talk a little bit about things that are going on around us, right? We are still in 2020. 2020 has brought an amazing set of challenges to businesses worldwide, to individuals and families worldwide. Talk about, from you as a sales leader, how are you as a sales leader helping your sales team to stay engaged and maintain productivity, especially if you're challenged with your target audience that is not buying? And there's many, many, many companies, thousands of companies that are impacted either significantly or even just a little bit, right? What do you do as a sales leader?
So, wow. I mean, that's a big question. And there's so many different things I could share. So I'll start to share some. So first of all, it's really trying to understand what's going on with our team. And what I mean by that is, through this experience, we have different types of folks dealing with different types of situations. We have some that are literally isolated in their home alone, while we have others that might be going through a different type of challenge of trying to, school their children. And the the dog's barking and the doorbell's ringing while they're attempting to try to still prospect and to try to still get people to pick up the phone while trying to deal with their own emotions. So from a organizational perspective, what we quickly did was implement a very detailed communication plan, because the wave of the past, where you could just quickly pick up and call somebody or walk into somebody's office and communicate something, is gone, at least in current state. So we developed a very detailed communication plan, and to be mindful of the wellness of each of our people. So we've done things like meditation sessions to really I'm encouraging my people right now that sometime in the middle of your day, regardless of how busy you are, and I try to give myself that advice, to get yourself to at least get up and go exercise and get the blood pumping. We're providing them resource centers to help them with things at home as well, and trying to be more adaptable and flexible, because it is simply a different environment. Down to town hall meetings. So town hall meetings where we want to bring together large groups, breaking those things into small and specific segments, because you and I both know the attention rate when you're sitting here staring at a computer versus in a big group environment, elbow to elbow, is very, very different.
Yeah.
Those are some of the things we've done. From a sales specific perspective, we are celebrating little wins. It's almost like back when you have a brand new employee, and or imagine when you were raising your first child, you're celebrating and you're clapping when they're crawling, and it's going back to those times and really, really, really celebrating the small wins and helping everybody pivot quickly, because what we do is we call on small and medium-sized businesses. So through the current situation and crisis that we have at hand, we have some of the industries that we're calling on that are growing so quickly, they can't figure out how to do that, while we have others that are shutting the doors. So we're trying to help our sales folks figure out whom should they really be talking to now. And even if it's a client that's down or a prospect that's downsizing, it's how can we provide them value in their moment of despair, frankly. So it's how can we serve others? How can we be that guide for them? So those are some of the things we're doing. What's really interesting lately is, as you and I are talking right now, we're about 2.5, 3 months into this now.
Yeah.
And our world is opening up from a prospecting perspective and the feedback that we're getting. And so it's interesting from a sales measurement perspective, I'm really spending more time on those leading indicators. So the touches, the dials, how many of those do you need to make, whether it be media touches or so on and so forth, that will then create that next step of interaction. So I'm spending a lot more time, and so are my leaders, in those areas that will then eventually lead to helping other companies and bringing them to our solution.
And I understand the balance of this. So many leaders are focused on, what do we close? What do we close? Right. Especially if you're a small or medium-sized business like Vingresso, it's what do we close? What do we close? Because you got to pay the bills. Right. And that's super important. That's very important to have that revenue coming in. But as much as we talk about how do we close something, is the same level of conversation that I personally am having just last night with our chief sales officer, Kurt Shaver, which was, what do I need to do to help break down or open a door? Mm-hmm. And those are some of those leading indicators: a referral, a dial, an email, a social touch, a text, a meeting. Like, let's go back, and our biggest metric that I watch today is the number of sales conversations that we're having. And if we're not having enough sales conversations, then and only then do I look back at some of those indicators that say, well, are you doing the right things to be able to create the sales conversation? Now, don't get me wrong. I want to get to close one deals. I do. Who doesn't, right? But what do we have to? It's like baby steps. Crawl before you run. Let's crawl before you run. So I love that point there. And then tell me a little bit more on the celebrating little wins. I've got some things that we've done internally, but that's for on a smaller scale. I'd be curious to see on a large scale, because you've got, how many sales reps do you guys have now?
We have hundreds and hundreds of sales reps.
Okay. So hundreds of sales reps. Mm-hmm. How do you celebrate those small wins? Is it on a local level, regional level, national, worldwide? How often are you communicating these types of things to the sales organization?
The answer is yes, all of the above. And I'll elaborate a little bit more. So we've spent a lot of time with our sales leaders, and these are sales leaders of all levels, of communicating more than we ever have before. So more interaction like you and I are having than ever before, more planned interactions like this more than ever before, and celebrating the small wins, whether it be with just the frontline sales leader to that individual contributor doing team meetings around so-and-so actually only had to do X amount of touches and X amount of dials today that yielded these amount of conversations. So for us, that would be a small celebration. To a salesperson figured out in this industry today that here's what just changed last week in the climate, because the climate of sales is changing literally by the day right now, and sharing that with others, to formal weekly meetings, monthly meetings that are regional and a national basis. So the answer is yes to all of the above, more frequent than we've ever done before. And our organization has always done a really good job at collaborating, and this is at even a national level. But I would say what the COVID-19 experience has done even more remarkably in a positive way for us is it's seeing the amazing gifts coming out of each other, the gratitude for each other, and the cross collaboration. So folks are really wanting to share with each other what's working, what's not, when they're coming up against a new challenge that they hadn't faced the day before, reaching out, and we've got lots of platforms to do that, and seeking feedback.
I love it. One of the things that we've done and we've heard, actually, I forget where I stole it from, but it was a big company, and they had a Slack channel. And on that Slack channel, they have a all hands distribution for sales. And the, in this case, CRO, president of sales, was taking all these small wins, new appointment booked, new deal closed, a new milestone hit, whatever, and throwing into the Slack channel, and everybody starts contributing to that. And, people are being recognized and rewarded. And so I took that idea and we started a all company, we use Google, we're Google Enterprise. So an all company Google chat. And we've got everything from someone talking about they had a bad day with their husband and they got into a fight and they needed some advice, to pictures of a new appointment, a new deal booked, to the dog pictures going on inside there, and really just everybody collaborating. We even had one of our guys who used to be in Finland, and he was actually showing pictures every morning of his walk, along with beautiful scenery pictures of, really makes you stop and think about, there's so much more to this world than what we hear going on, right? So we had all that going on as well. And in that all hands channel is where we're also celebrating key wins. Something that I personally have done as well is we use OneMob, which is a video sales acceleration platform, generally used for prospecting, but absolutely able to be used for internal use. And I started recording now videos regularly to our employees and our team, and sending out video updates with, as an example, on the last video, I showed all the productivity of the sales team, the sales stats, where we were at, how we closed, what just happened. And I would have those as attachments on that landing page. And it's, sending those types of things out. So to over communicate in this case, because we are so far separated from each other. But what I hadn't thought of, and I really like, is your meditation idea, right? I just thought of, wow, what if I do a daily 30-minute exercise program that anybody can come in and we have videos playing and we're all exercising together as a virtual sales team, or virtual team, period, right? Not just sales, but anybody. I like that concept. I think I might have to steal that one, if that's okay.
Sure. Some folks are doing that in our organization as well. And all those communication things that you just said, we too are doing at multiple levels in multiple places. And I think that's really key for those folks that are so used to working elbow to elbow, that are all in their homes now. We as leaders need to be responsible to bring us all together the best that we can.
Yeah. I was talking to a family member. We did a family Zoom, and one of the family members, and we said, how are you doing? And she said, horrible. And I said, horrible? Why? She said, I'm a total extrovert. I'm all by myself. I'm cooped up in the house now. I'm absolutely going crazy because I don't have the ability to be able to communicate with other people. And this Zoom thing is not quite cutting it after about 30 days. And I'm super depressed. And it kind of struck me because I'm also an extrovert. No, people probably listening right now, they're probably saying, no way. But I've got my family. I've got my two boys who I don't even have time to think about me, because as soon as I'm off of work, Daddy, come play Jedi Swords with me, play tag, play, whatever it is that they want me to play. And then I've got my wife. But there are others, our employees, who are single and by themselves. And it's really something that I think you hit on here, Wendy, and that is we've got to think about, all right, those individuals, we're asking them to perform, but they mentally might just not be able to, or they need something else to be able to perform because of they've got a personality like I just described with one of my family members.
People are dealing with all sorts of things. So from that to the family that maybe also with daycares being closed down, that what do I do when the 3-year-old walks in and says, mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy? So there's all those dynamics that we as sales leaders really need to think through. How can we best provide our colleagues support to help them be the best they can be in the current situation?
Now, my guess is all of these things that we're talking about, I'm sure TriNet as a whole is taking some of this thought leadership out to your clients, the small and medium-sized businesses, and helping, or how else are you might be helping?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So when you think about businesses and what they deal with, the most important resource, and I know this will be dear to you, for any company is really their employees. Mm-hmm. And as companies grow, the complexities of what happens continue to grow, and the complications get even bigger. And the complexities of dealing with, employment relation issues, payroll issues, knowing what type of benefits should and shouldn't be offered. As employees grow, complexities grow, and business owners often have little resources to be able to address those things. And then you stack COVID-19 onto this, and it just turns many businesses upside down into a panic, into a what am I going to do, into how can I focus on my mission at hand when I don't have the resources and don't know what to do with the latest complexity of law changes. So I start to answer your question there, because what TriNet is doing for our clients and our future clients is truly being that resource. And what I mean by that is we have, you could imagine, our internal subject matter experts that have had to quickly pivot and get out to our clients as well as our future clients information pertinent to the insanity of what we're all facing today. Yeah. And our company has built a business resiliency plan that is out there that I can give the website to at the end of this call. Sure. To help both current clients as well as just businesses in America, because it is about how do we get everybody back to work? How do we get businesses thriving in America to continue to build our economy? So the company is doing things like that, which also is a huge source for our sales teams, because their clients are calling them and saying, hey, how do I deal with business continuity plans right now? How do I deal with the loans out there? I think I understand them, but I don't know if I qualify. So TriNet internal subject matter experts have really done a good job trying to get information out there to help everybody.
And it doesn't help, speaking as a small business, when the U.S. government or Treasury is putting out new guidance every couple of days of, oh, by the way, oh, we forgot about this. Well, we didn't tell you how you actually can qualify. And, oh, we're going to change this now. And, oh, by the way, the big one, when they were offering the PPP was for LLCs. You guys, the Treasury forgot all about LLCs and whether or not partners could qualify for compensation. So, all those things were changing so rapidly, and with information and knowledge. And, I love what you guys do is in terms of providing as a resource for small and medium-sized businesses. And, many different questions that we would have never even thought to ask, I started asking because we never had those situations come up before. Like, can I actually terminate or can I actually furlough an employee and then bring them back at a reduced salary? Right? Those are the types of things that you're just like, whoa, like I never had to think about that before, right? I love what you guys are doing in terms of that thought leadership, but I also know that there are many companies who are also experiencing growth, like the way Vingresso has been experiencing some growth too. So talk a little bit about, if you would, you've had success in building sales teams. What are some of the lessons that you've learned in terms of building sales teams that other sales leaders right now listening in can start saying, yes, that's good, and I should apply that because, especially during this time, talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so building sales teams. if you start at the top and work our way down into the details, it's really about attracting top talent, developing top talent, and then retaining top talent. I am a person that loves to spend time trying to figure out how do you simplify the complex, because the human mind can only think of so many things at a time, and the human mind can only take so much in. So I'm a person that's, how do you take the complex and simplify it? So it's really about attracting, developing, and then how in the heck do you retain top talent? Those are the three really critical areas. So when you think about building sales teams, let's talk about how do you attract the top talent first? You want to start there?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you talk about attracting top talent, it really begins with a couple of key ingredients. Number one, you've got to identify what are the characteristics and past experiences that are required or that you typically see that would lend to someone that would be successful in whatever the role it is that you're hiring for. So for example, in sales, some sales folks, it might be better if they have a B2B sales background. Others, it might be better if they have a B2C background. Some sales folks, it might be better, depending upon what you're hiring for, to be a long sales cycle, where others, it might be a more transactional cycle. Some, it might be toe-to-toe selling. Some, it might be remote selling. So it's really understanding, first and foremost, what is it of somebody's history that could tell you, if you're just looking at resumes, that, this candidate might be a good fit. And to be able to do that, a sales leader really has to have identified clearly what success looks like in the job that they're hiring for. So those are the beginning of the criterias.
Which makes sense in terms of looking at attracting and looking at those characteristics that would lead someone to be successful. And if you're have a small sales team, like we've got a team of 5, or if you have a large sales team of 1,000, it all still applies, right? I mean, like these are the types of things we need to be thinking about, whether you're hiring your first one or you're hiring your 1,000th one.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And then, so if you know what great looks like, you document that, you identify that, you know what great looks like, then you need to think of what were those great people, or what would backgrounds, what should they look like that could lend to the best success rate? Okay, so that's it first. So you first identify that. Then it is about training the sales leaders that are finding the talent, and whomever you're partnering with, if you are partnering with anybody, on very clearly defined and disciplined hiring practices. And what I mean by that is, I fully believe, and over my many, many years of sales leadership, on behavioral-based interviewing. Mm-hmm. Because let's call it what it is. Salespeople are there to sell. So if you think about it like that, a salesperson should show up at the job interview and want to sell you. So if you aren't a skilled interviewer, you could get sold. And oftentimes new sales leaders get sold.
Get sold.
Sold, right? Let's just call it what it is. You want to be sold. So it is about having a very structured process for behavioral-based interviewing, so that the person doing the interviewing can peel back, and peel back the onion, and be able to identify what's top talent versus just somebody that is here to get by. For example, a couple other things is, as you're looking at the interview process, many newer sales leaders get very caught up in what the candidate is saying versus listening for the things that they aren't saying. So through behavioral-based interviewing, a person, once they practice, just like everything else, they can really listen for the things that aren't being said. So behavioral-based interviewing is critical of becoming a master at that. There's some knockout factors that folks should just pay attention to. And that is 3 areas that I always recommend people slow down And once they have had every interaction with a candidate, and this is specifically newer leaders, sales leaders, is to slow down when they're going, oh, I really like that person. They slow down and they ask themselves 3 fundamentally simple questions.
Ooh, give them to me. Are you gonna give them to me?
I'll give them to you.
All right, give it to me.
So it's 3 words, and then I'll tell you what they mean.
Okay.
The one, attitude, commitment, and fit. Just write down those 3 words. And here's what this means. They walk out of an interaction with a potential candidate. And I tell sales leaders, ask yourself this. As they talked about anything that you guys talked about in the interview process, was their language more half full or half empty? When they did introspection about their past sales that they either won or lost, and they talked you through those sales processes, was it positive introspection and what they learned, or was it blame of why they didn't get a sale? Because you and I both know sales is hard. It is a tough gig. And so you're looking for people that have that attitude that let me go over, under, and around any potential hurdles versus I can't get it done. So attitude, I'm going, okay, did they have and did they display consistently an attitude? The commitment factor. The commitment factor is always controversial, always. And there's always exceptions to every rule. Okay, so I'll just start there. And the commitment factor is this. Were you able to identify in somebody's business career or career in general that they have been committed? So for example, there could be a resume that a new leader receives, and this resume has all these companies that you would love to hire people from, yet they jump. And so when I say commitment, those tendencies tend to be that they're not going to stick through when the going gets tough. And again, sales is tough. So commitment, did you find and evaluate commitment in their past life? And the reason I say it's controversial is usually newer leaders fall in love with those candidates, literally fall in love.
Yep.
And then they're going, but knockout, because I guarantee you those that have a repetitive pattern, the past behavior will tell you indicators of the future behavior, will tell you that they'll jump again when the going gets tough. So that's the commitment. And the last thing is fit. Here's what I mean about that. Every company has a culture, whether you know it or not. Every company has a culture, and every company, if you want top talent, and again, this question revolved around top talent. If you want top talent, you want that talent to match the culture that either you currently have or you're trying to create. So when I say fit, it's about cultural fit to the company. It's about fit to the job. And that example is, do you really need somebody that has B2B past experience, or is B2C okay? Long sales cycles, short sales cycles, so on and so forth. That's a fit question. A fit to the team. You're building a team. So do the dynamics, are they that piece to the puzzle that will help continue to evolve somebody's organization? So it's attitude, commitment, fit that I always tell sales leaders, look, you're going to have 28 pages of notes if you've done this right. You're going to be doing these interview processes with other people. So you've got, more ears and one person's asking questions. And you're going to go, now what do I do with all of this? And the worst thing somebody could do is simply go with their gut. So this kind of puts some substance behind that process to find the top talent and simplifies it down, because I am a person of simplify the complex. And hiring top talent is complex.
So interesting you mentioned that. We had I'll tell you experience in our process when we hire somebody, specifically in sales, anybody responsible for revenue, they go through a series of about 4 different interviews. And then the 5th and final one is what we call the panel interview. And the panel interview is we invite people from different parts of the business to come and grade and rank this individual. And we give very specific guidance, several bullet points that says, hey, you're going to have 45 minutes total on this panel. Your first 5 minutes this is run like a sales meeting. Your first 5 minutes is your introductions. We're going to hand it off to you, and you decide how you want to introduce everybody or how you want to get people's names and talk to them. And you take over, right? Like a sales meeting. And then you're going to have 30 minutes worth of content, and you're presenting on 3 very specific topics: why you, why the company, and then something you're passionate about. Tell us something. Maybe you love dance, as an example. Teach us something. It's a teachable moment, we call it. And then the last 10 minutes is all around Q&A, and we have a whole scaling system. And there's 3, 6, 9. I think there's 10 or 11 questions. And our panelists, they will rank based upon a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. So we had a situation where a killer salesperson with a very good track record, very charismatic, that our CSO loved. And I thought it was a great person as well. I thought it was a great fit. Came through the panel. There were 7 people on the panel, and we purposely stacked this panel up because we want to make sure that we can see how they can present in front of a crowd, right? Do they get nervous? You know, like what's their body, their behavior-based interviewing, right? What's the behavior? If someone is 5 minutes before they're about to go out of time for that 30-minute slot, our director of business operations in this case will tell them, you've got 5 minutes left, and then you've got 3 minutes, and then 1 minute, and then we cut you off. If you're in the middle, we cut you off because you didn't learn how to manage your time right. So nonetheless, our director says, hey, you've got 3 or whatever it was, 5 minutes left. Well, the individual salesperson turned around and said, no, I think you did it wrong. And I'd like to have my time back. Thank you very much. Because we started at this time. This is what my clock shows. Now, the instant body language back to our director was he put his pen down. He stopped taking notes the rest of the entire meeting. He was done, right? A couple of our folks said, wow, I like the way he fought for his time. And the other folks said, whoa, he was way too aggressive, right? And so what happened was at the end, we all talked about it. Our chief sales officer said, I like the way he fought for his time. Like that's what he should. But the other 6 people in the room were like, did you see how he totally alienated? And he didn't even read the body language of the director. The director was like pissed the way he came back at him. So we came up with this idea, and we said, why don't, because we record the sessions. We said, why don't we send the individual the recording? Let's see if they have the ability to watch back the plays and see if they did something wrong. Well, it turns out we sent the recording, and the individual watched it, gave back what he did well and what he didn't do well. And one of the things he didn't recognize was how he absolutely, in my opinion, he did alienate this individual. And if he does it there, as simple as that, what else will he do with the other internal team members, right? Mm-hmm. And so we made a decision to not hire based upon fit. And that's back to your point. I was hoping that he would see what he did on the recording.
Hey, you were rooting for him.
I was rooting for him. I really was, because I thought, he would be a good fit, and he came with a strong recommendation and background and all that good stuff. But I think that's really important that we take the time as leaders to understand, as you laid out, their attitude, commitment, but the fit is, that is just as important as their attitude and commitment. Because if they're a wrecking ball, a bull in a china shop, and they're not going to get along well with other people, or just maybe even the culture, the style of the pace at which the company moves, you can have a lot more problems on your hand.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that was great feedback. Now, you spend time on attracting, developing, and retaining. We don't have a whole lot of time to go through each one of those areas, but I do want to spend some time on retaining, because you brought up something specific to people hopping. And that's, in my opinion, Wendy, one of the new norms, especially as we see millennial sellers. No longer do we see somebody at 10 years or 15 years or even 30 years at a company, right? That's right. It doesn't happen anymore.
No.
So the average jump, I don't even know what the average number of years is as a salesperson, but what I've been seeing is every 18 months, which is barely long enough for you to be able to say, yes, I hit quota after 12 months, because it takes you 6 months to ramp up, for goodness sakes, right? So how do we retain talent with this mindset, especially as a younger generation comes in and they're constantly hopping along into different organizations? What is some of your advice there?
For retaining top talent, there's a multi-prong approach. Let's just start there. So top talent always wants to be challenged. Okay. So as a sales leader, the first thing you have to do is it does start with the day when they walk in the door. So literally it starts then. It starts actually in the interviewing process, but to retain it starts at the beginning. So not only does a sales leader need to have a very clear and defined onboarding program, it has to do with what is the progression of that individual contributor in that example that keeps them. And let me speak a little bit further on that. So To keep top talent, it's number one. I always recommend to sales leaders, always have a co-authored development plan. Now, I've been through enough training classes where there will be a theory that somebody says you should always have an individual development plan. And guess what? Sales leaders, that is the first thing that they throw over the fence and say, yeah, I'll get to that. I'm so busy trying to deal with all my other priorities, and my reps fine, they produce and they're great. But that's actually one of the last things that should fall by the wayside. And because I am a person of let's keep it simple, trying to keep and retain the top talent, it is continuously having one thing and one thing only, that you are helping each one of your team members with to improve in their craft. So for some people, you talked about that candidate that you guys interviewed a second ago. It could be emotional intelligence, because guess what? That person lacks emotional intelligence. And guess what? Oftentimes we have folks like that on our team. So to retain, so you might have a salesperson that they exceed their quotas every single day and all the time, but their emotional intelligence was that person that you met. So somebody like that, if they're achieving results in that example, their one big rock is EQ. And you'll keep those people when you're constantly challenging them and helping with that development. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing, top talent stays around when they feel and they know they're a part of a bigger picture and a bigger vision. You shared with me some of your amazing stories with your company, and I'm telling you, you have that type of loyalty from your amazing employees because they feel they're a part of something bigger than themselves. So that's also how you retain the top talent. And then obviously financially, you have to be competitive. But if you notice, I said that as the last thing. So it really is about constantly challenging and helping your top talent grow. It is constantly feeding them because they have to be fed. And it is constantly helping them understand they are a part of something bigger than themselves. That is critical to really maintain top talent.
The bigger your company is, the harder it is to potentially feel like you're part of something bigger, right?
Yeah.
Like the vision. For example, when I used to work at a Fortune 80 company, I personally could never feel like whatever I do is going to make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to really change my mindset on some things, because if I thought of it as, look, we're a $36 billion company, okay? And my $300 million worth of span of control is a blip on the elephant's butt, if you would, on comparison to $36 billion. If I thought of it that way, then yeah, I can never see myself as part of a bigger vision, right? But if I take that macrocosmic like view and bring that down to a microcosmic viewpoint, which is, hey, my $300 million a year business is actually the largest business in all of the West region as a single entity. Now I have a totally different viewpoint on, holy crap, if I lose this Wells Fargo account that's $120 million, our entire West region will be in a world of hurt, right? I think a lot of leaders struggle in trying to, in bigger companies, with trying to get the individual to see that their, whatever their quota is, $1,000 a month, $20,000 a month, whatever that number is, what that impact is if you don't make quota on this 7-person team, here's the impact. You represent 20% of my quota. That's the impact. That's where I think a lot of leaders fail to really give that, what you talked about, as make someone feel a part of the bigger vision. You got to make the vision, you got to piece that vision down, all the way down to an individual level, and make that person feel part of it. Because sometimes in a small company, I think you can do that, right? A 30-person company like ours, I'm talking to almost all of our people. But in the bigger you are, it's much harder to feel like you're going to make an impact just with your teeny weeny little quota. Any response to that? Do you think I'm right?
No, I completely agree with you. And I would say this, that it is teaching leaders at whatever level it is, and teaching individual contributors, so every employee, to look at themselves as a CEO. And you may be able to relate to this. So if you teach people how to think like a CEO, meaning here's what my brand is. Here's what I represent. Here is how I can help others grow. Or specifically at TriNet, the impact we have on small to medium-sized businesses is beyond amazing. And so when you help people understand and truly feel what they give, whether they give it to colleagues, whether they give their gift to businesses that they sell, whether they give their gift to the stockholders, wherever they fit along the chain, it really is helping people think like a CEO that I think helps with a lot of that. But it is harder the bigger the companies get.
There was a recent testimonial that we had, and someone had identified that through our modern digital sales training program and teach them how to leverage LinkedIn, that they were able to close their largest deal ever, which actually kept them alive as a small business. Mm-hmm. And if I was the salesperson, maybe I don't see the bigger vision, how I'm a part of the bigger vision for the company. But if now I apply it down to my individual customer and how I'm making that impact, that is a system, if you would, that I can control. And that's where I think someone can say, I'm making an impact and everything that I do is going to help. And this is how it's helping. And that becomes now your customer's vision is your vision, right? So I guess my message is to all those people that are listening in that are in part of big companies. Yeah, you may not, if you're working for IBM, maybe what you do maybe doesn't make a difference, but that small piece of that one customer that you helped, that's the story you're looking for in terms of making that you're part of a bigger vision as well.
Absolutely.
We could be here and talk for another whole hour. My goodness.
We're out of time.
We're out of time. I'll have to have you back on maybe another live show because I do want to spend time. I would love to spend time on another one. And maybe we have a LinkedIn live program, but I want to spend time on one specific topic. And that was how to help sales leaders get back on track after they've lost focus. We're just simply out of time on the podcast. So I tell you what, Wendy, I'm going to have Vivica host our LinkedIn Live weekly sessions. I'm going to give this to her as a topic, and we'll have you on for about 10, 15 minutes to talk about that as a small snippet, because I think that's something that we're all feeling the pain with right now, and we're all struggling with. I've lost my focus, and it's not because I intentionally did it. It's because what you described earlier, I've got kids screaming by the way, literally here in my office, while we were talking, I put myself on mute because my 6-year-old walks into my office, goes pee in my toilet, and he leaves the door open and you can hear him peeing in the toilet.
Yeah, I've got the dog scratching at the door.
Yeah. So it's stuff like that, things can just take over and you lose a little bit of focus. But I loved having you on the show. We'll make sure that resource that you referenced, we'll put that into the show notes on the website. And if people want to connect with you, they've heard you on the Modern Selling Podcast, what's the best way? Is it through Twitter? Is it through LinkedIn? How can they reach out to you?
Definitely LinkedIn's the best way.
Okay. So we'll make sure we also put your LinkedIn URL. But if you're looking for Wendy, it is definitely Wendy Mitchell with 2 L's, Covington at TriNet, TriNet. We'll put it into the show notes, y'all. And before I let you go, my final question to you is your all-time favorite movie. What is it?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm not this huge, big movie buff, but in fact, it's a fight in our house all the time between my husband and my son and myself. So let me give you this. I'm really into movies that are about performance, i.e. my background. So whether it's Chicago or good old Wizard of Oz, that's what I love and my husband and son hate. But most recent drama that I totally loved was Molly's Game. Okay, if you don't know what Molly's Game is, you've got to go watch it. It's about this woman. She's a skier, and she was preparing for the Olympics and supposed to be amazing, and she got hurt. And then she ended up, and it's based on a memoir from Molly Bloom. So ended up into gambling. You talked about gambling earlier today. So anyway, ended up into gambling. Anyway, go watch the movie. It was really fascinating. Very
Molly's Game. You got it. We'll put that into the show notes too. Wendy, it's been awesome having you on the show. And for all of you listening in right now, don't turn that dial. Listen to this very important message right now. Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a rating and review on iTunes. I would appreciate it. Also, if you want to easily find our show, just go to themodernsellingpodcast.com mediumsized.com. Hey, since you'll be on our site, be sure to check out our Modern Marketing Engine podcast hosted by my co-founder and CMO, Bernie Borges. Thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.